Hey designers, this is how you put threads on a product. So here I have mock-up of my deck plate. So I started with just three revolves. So this is a sketch of the first one that I have just on my right plane. I also put in an axis that is in between these two planes. So that'll give me something to do the revolve around. So I'll turn off my planes. I'll just show you the sketches again real quick. So this is for the outer part, and then I have two that define the inner part. I could have done these together, but um, did them separately. Doesn't really matter, and revolve that around the axis. So the next few steps are putting threads on the inner part, and the process is exactly the same for doing the outer part as well. So I put in a sketch. I'll kind of roll into my sweep just to get access to this sketch. This is how you begin. You put a triangle in here that'll determine the cross section of the thread. So I've dimensioned that based on what I think looks realistic. I could take calipers and I could measure the exact thread on the product. But I imagine it's not going to be that dissimilar to this. So I have it dimensioned. I have a center point for the triangle, and I have it symmetric about that horizontal line. So that's going to be how you begin. I put a plane that is intersecting the vertex at that one component. So if I turn on my sketches, I can show you guys what that looks like. So this plane is intersecting that point there in the triangle. That way, if I move the triangle up or down, my helix and my sweep is going to travel with it. So that's the second step. Third step is to make a circle on that new plane with which you can make a helix. So if I show my curve, you should be able to see this. I have a circle, so you can put a circle in on that sketch and then do a helical curve based on that. So let me do that again, just so you see the process rather than just showing you in the tree. So I've selected that plane. I can make a sketch on that plane, and I could put a circle in here, and I could snap it to that point, or I could snap it to that point. It doesn't really matter. In my tree, the one that I had made already was this point, but it won't be any different if I use that point. So I have my circle in here. Now I need a curve with which to make my sweep. So if I go features, I go, um, well, I need to check out of my sketch. Now I can go features, and my zoom screen keeps getting in the way here. Let me see if I can move that. Okay, there we go. There it is. Helix and spiral is what you're going to be looking for. So you select that circle, and you can see there's a yellow path that is the preview of that helix. So you can control a few things here. You can control the pitch, which is basically the height and the rate at which that helix goes up. So I want this way down because I want that thread to be fairly shallow. You can control the number of revolutions, which is how many times that path goes around the circle. And you can control the start angle. So I think for me, I want this at like 90 degrees to intersect my triangle. There we go. And clockwise or counterclockwise. I believe for the thread, we want counterclockwise. But double check me on that. You can look at the product and see which way it goes. I believe it's counterclockwise because you turn it to the right to tighten it. Um, but I could be wrong. So hit check, and there's our curve. The last step is to then sweep that cross section along that curve. So I'll deselect here so that I can start fresh. Features, swept boss, select your cross section, which is that sketch, select your curve, which is that sketch. Um, It should show a preview automatically, but I'm in section view. I should have mentioned that earlier. So let me X out of that. Let's get a better display here. Let's hide that and let's turn off my section view. All right, this might be what you're seeing. So let's try that again. So swept boss, I want that cross section. I want this curve. And there it is. My yellow preview shows up, and that looks like a nice thread. Um, I can leave auto select highlighted, but I always like to pick the body that I expect it to merge to, just to be double sure that it's going to the right place. There's my thread. A few final touches. I'm going to delete this just to use the one that I already have in the tree, just to keep things from getting confused. I'm going to add a couple cuts. I showed this to you guys in class. If I make a rectangle that is in the same plane that I made the triangle for my sketch, I can use this to make a cut. So you guys can see this if I have this highlighted. All right, I'm going to make a cut extrude through that part of the thread. And the reason that I'm doing that is because most of the time on a plastic part, the thread is molded into the part, which means that these mold halves have to separate and you don't want a big undercut in your part. So to do that, you want it to be flush to the side there in order to mold that part appropriately. And I can do that on the other side as well. All right. That looks like more of a gradual lead in. It looks more realistic. It'll look better in renderings. And then the last thing I did was just applied a fillet to the edge, right? Just to soften it a little bit. In renderings, if things look too crisp, right? If things come to like a perfect line or a perfect point, it tends to look unrealistic or digitally created because in real life, there would be slight radii on things just to preserve the tool life of a mold. It makes things look more realistic. It makes the highlight show up a little bit better when you go to render it. So that's about it. You can repeat the process for the other side. It's no different doing the thread on the outer part versus the thread on the inner part. Same process. You need a section, you need a helix, and you need a sweep in order to create it. Hope this is helpful, and I'll see you in class. Thanks.